Hey guys, welcome back to She Became Me podcast. My name is Tina Rogers. I'm your host, and my co-hosts are.
Ronika,
Chino.
Yolanda.
And our guest today is Pastor Rachel. And Pastor Rachel will be sharing with us, because we're going to continue talking about spiritual connections, what are some action steps and routines and rituals and things of that nature. So, of course, she's a pastor, so she has a lot that she's going to be able to share and pour into us today. So welcome, Pastor Rachel.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's an honor to get to be with you guys today. I'm very excited.
And I wanted to mention, to my viewers that Ronika and I recently did a podcast with Pastor Rachel, and I had a wonderful time. She has the cutest and the little smallest little podcast studio,
Yeah.
and I had a really good time. So that will be coming up, soon. And I got a chance to listen to it, and I was just blown away. She did a really good job of making me be calm, relaxed, and I felt like, I was pleased with the way that I behaved. So,
Good,
so,
good.
so that was good. So, Pastor Rachel, tell us, how did you become a pastor?
I know,
Yeah,
right?
being a female pastor, a lot of
yeah.
times, that's not, exactly the thing that, is, people want to hear when a female wants to become a pastor.
Right, right. Well, I'll tell you, it's been quite a walk.
Okay.
I started out as a developmental therapist,
Oh, okay.
actually. Like, that's my, by trade,
Okay.
that's my training.
Okay.
And because of that, I was offered a position, just part-time, at Emmanuel Church as a nursery and preschool director. At that time, we
Okay.
didn't have pastors that were females on
Okay,
staff.
right,
So,
right.
that was 10 years ago.
Okay.
And so I had been at the church already 10 years and as I started working with families and children, I could, and this was a little later in life. This was around when I was 35.
Okay.
And so I started to feel that call, that
Okay.
pressure that
Okay.
like, you're doing great, but you're gonna do more. You're
Right,
doing
right,
great,
right,
but
right,
you're
right.
gonna do more.
Right.
And so that started some conversations that
Right.
then started some research, and our lead pastor started moving us toward recognizing through certification in our church
Mhm.
women who were leading in the same pastoral capacity as our male counterparts.
Okay.
But for me personally, God took being an executive assistant years before that, and
Mhm.
being a developmental therapist,
Mhm.
and loving and caring for families, and just merged it all together, and has
Okay.
grown the ministry that I get the privilege of serving in, to be an executive pastor of families and multi-sites. So
Okay.
my old background was in real estate and children, and he merged both of those into being an expansion pastor. And
Right.
at 45, it is amazing to look back and be like, oh, you were doing that.
Yeah, yes.
You were doing that. And I love the passion, pain, and power
Yes.
that you guys represent, and
Yes.
that you have for She Became Me.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there was a lot of pain along the way for those things, but I can see now that he was growing into
Yes.
what I would need to be able to do this position now.
Right.
So that's a little bit of how it all moved
Came
forward.
together, huh?
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, the old saying, no pain, no gain.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
not too many people can look back and say that I got here without any growing pains.
Right.
That's part of the process. So,
It really is.
definitely that's our goal, is to try to bring that out of others,
Mhm.
well, you can't get to your passion without going through the pain.
No.
It's what you have to develop and grow. We call it pain, but ultimately it's just development.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
growing
Yeah,
and learning, so.
absolutely.
When you felt that tug in your heart to step into your calling, was there ever a time during that season that you just felt like, I'm not worthy of this? Like, why am I being like tugged on to fill
Yeah.
this position?
Yeah, there were also times, yes, is the answer to that question. And there were also times when I could feel like, the giving away of my calling, like compromising it, I guess would be a better way to say it. And those are some dark times that like spiritual practices and disciplines had to come into play for me so that I could get back up right and keep going. But what I'll tell you is that when I felt those difficulties and hurdles, sometimes they felt insurmountable, but a lot of times they were faith builders.
Okay.
And so when the stop was put out there, many times when I got to the bottom of it, that God used it for good.
Uh-huh.
He morphed it into what he wanted it to be, but it wasn't put out there by him.
Right.
So we're gonna put up this wall or this barrier, but I'm gonna help you get over that wall. And in fact, you're gonna have to do it all in my power so that at the end of the day, it will be by Christ alone that
Yes.
you were able to jump that hurdle.
I love that.
Yeah.
I like that, faith builders. Mhm. So, your podcast,
Yeah.
how did that drop in your soul or spirit or come to birth, or how did
Yeah.
that come out?
Yeah, that was solely born out of pain.
Okay.
It's many, many, many years ago. I mentioned how old I am, and that's okay, because I don't want to go back into my 20s and stuff. I'm glad to be where I'm at. But many, many years ago in middle school, there was, I came to Christ when I was 7. So growing up, I knew Jesus, knew what he was about, knew I was called to love God and to love people no matter what you're doing, whether you're a
Right.
middle school student or you're grown. And I had a miss, and it was a peer that was really struggling with something, and this is kind of a dramatic miss, but I didn't listen to her. I didn't recognize her as being important. I was
Right.
very self-absorbed, which is,
Yeah.
typical for a middle schooler. I
Right,
get
right,
that.
right.
But things went bad, and she wound up in the hospital
Mhm.
of her own accord, and it was just a really difficult situation for a 13-year-old to look at. And I decided then that when I interact with someone, they will have the opportunity to be heard, to feel important, and to know they're loved. And at the end of the day, if we can't get on the same page about whatever it is, you'll at least know that I see your value.
Right.
You are
Yes.
important.
Yes.
You are loved by me,
Mhm.
and I will listen
Mhm.
to you and really hear it. And that has been a mantra for me for many, many, many years. So then in 2016 is when I felt the strong pressure to start moving it into a ministry.
Okay.
But I didn't know that it was gonna end as a podcast. Because there are lots of okay, this hurdle came, push against that, that's not, okay, you're not gonna speak in a venue, you're not gonna do this, we're not gonna do that right now, maybe someday. But then the podcast, and it's actually one of the younger guys on our staff, he was in his early 20s when he said this, he just spoke it outright, said, you take it to a podcast, because nobody can stop you there.
Yes.
They can just not listen.
Right,
They can
right.
just not like it.
Right, right.
But they can't stop you, because
Right.
you can keep, and then, from pain again, my father passed away, and I was very close to him. He's the parent that I'm super close to. And in that, he left me what I would need to start that. He gave me all along
Yeah.
the words.
Right.
He wasn't one of dad that says, you can do that. I would say, well, da-da-da-da, and he goes, well, psh, you can do that. You're already done with that. It wasn't you can do anything, he told you specifically.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that the pain then came into, now I feel like I feel powerful about it. I
Yeah.
feel embodied by the Holy Spirit to do that, and
Yeah.
I feel like even if in the world's eyes, it doesn't reach multiple downloads, I mean,
Right.
it's being successful right now, yes, but
Mhm.
it's getting its little baby legs and toddling right now. But I know that, that I have the power to continue with
Yes.
this, and that comes from Christ alone.
Right. So you said you knew, Christ at 7.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your 7-year-old mind,
Yeah.
you weren't quite able to say, I'm connected, spiritually or to God. And
Mm-hmm.
so looking back at, the young you, your younger self, how do you think that happened? That at 7, that you were able to have a connection at 7?
No, that's a really great question. The day that I was asked to go speak to Pastor Trent about Jesus, there were 2 other adults out in the lobby as well that were there to speak to him. And I'll tell you this, I do believe that when you train up your children in the way they should go,
Mhm.
I believe when the scriptures say that they don't depart from it. Now, does that mean that you always see the perfect fruit?
Yeah.
No. My junior year in high school through my sophomore year in college, that was not the fruit that I wanted. I'm just glad there was no social media, so my crazy wasn't documented for life there. But what I will tell you is, I knew for me, even then, that I had sin. And was it 7-year-old sin? Yeah, it was 7-year-old sin.
Mhm.
It was lying about my little brother. It was
Okay.
being mean to people at school.
Mhm.
I got that. And so I could turn from that. Now, could I turn from what a 45-year-old could turn from? No,
Right.
because I was little.
Right.
But I still could profess with my mouth that Jesus was going to be the Lord of my life. And he has been the Lord of my life.
Okay.
I've walked away from him a time or two,
Right, right.
but his presence has been consistent. And I would say that over my entire life, from the day I was put up from adoption till the day I drove up here today,
Mhm.
that it has been protection and grace always. No matter what blessings or monsters I ran up against, it has been protection and grace since the day I was born.
Wow, so you was adopted later in life or when you were a young child?
No, I was adopted at 3 days old. Yep.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
so I was put up for adoption here in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And, yep, my parents both adopted me. And
Oh, wow,
they,
okay.
yeah, I had a mother and a father. And we lived downtown on Rural
Okay.
Street. And then we
Okay.
moved out to Reelsville, Indiana.
And so they always told you were adopted?
Always.
Yeah.
I always knew that.
So, okay, so they told you at a very early age?
Yep,
Okay.
yes. I even though I was born in the 70s, there were still some books that,
Okay.
I remember I had books that talked about the adoption process and giving you kind of a right mindset about
Okay.
my birth mother and my birth father, who I did later meet and
Oh, okay.
have still connection with my birth mother. But all through life, I've known that. And then I was very blessed to have Florence Sillery as my Sunday school teacher, who
Okay.
taught me about the connection between our adoption. Yes, Rachel, you were adopted by your family. I mean, it was just like public knowledge.
Right.
But you've also been adopted into the body of Christ and the family of Christ. And so there was never no shame,
Right.
no shame about being adopted.
So do you feel like it was actually a blessing to maybe be adopted with the family that you had, or how did you feel about it?
Okay, that's a really great question that I have wrestled with. I don't know what it would have been like to be raised in my biological
Right.
family.
Right.
I can guess because I've met my biological mother's side of the family, and she was the oldest of 8, and I have an uncle who's only 2 years older than me.
Okay.
But I can tell you that I don't know how I would have navigated my life without my adoptive father.
Right.
Like, he gave me a good picture of David, about being after God's own heart, but yet of David, where he was not perfect.
Yes.
My dad suffered from alcoholism, and he quit, and then when my brother passed, he came back to it. And I'll tell you, he would tell that story that I'm more like David than I am like Jesus, but I'm trying. And then my mother that raised me, I would say that she provided me with the blessings and the encouragement that she could give while navigating her own pain.
Wow.
Yeah, and for that, we offer, again, grace
Yes.
and protection and grace. I'm gonna give you
Yeah.
these parents, and she stood present for me many, many a time. And then in my adulthood, my dad stood present for me many, many a time.
I just had a question, Pastor Rachel, what is the call to action for faith leaders right now? In the midst of the unrest, in the midst of,
Yeah.
the need for racial reconciliation, the
Mhm.
need for, truly meeting. We've talked throughout this series about meeting people where they are,
Yeah.
and not everyone is tapped into their spirituality and their
Mhm.
spiritual gifts right now. Can you give a call to action for faith leaders like yourself?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's such a, it's a difficult question for me to answer, and I can tell you why. It's difficult for me because so many people are coming to this party at so many different levels of engagement.
Yeah.
So when you step into something that is gonna be hard, you many times will brace yourself for impact. And when you step into something and you have the thought that this is gonna go badly either way, you can watch people just bristle and pick each other apart and be really, really hard with it. But when you come into it with hope and with the expectation that Christ is gonna show up and heal and bring together, we can look through history to look at racial reconciliation. We can look to history even deep in the Bible and see how He will put His hand on this in the way that, and it will work through how He wants it to work through. And so my call to action for people that are in spiritual leadership positions is first look in the mirror. Stop and just say, okay, you need to do a whole self-assessment before you hit your pulpit, or before your social media, or before you go into any kind of interaction with people. You need to do a self-reflection and see, okay, I'm about here, and be honest with yourself. So I need to educate myself through books, through podcasts, through whatever means necessary, and connecting with people, and educate yourself before you start speaking. And I think that's across the board. And then the other thing is to remember that the main focus is unity, and to remember that you're called no matter what faith. If you're in the Christian faith, no matter what denomination, you're told to love God and love people. And you're told that you will stand one day before Christ for what you are entrusted with. So if I'm entrusted with a friendship or with a congregation that is multiracial, I will stand before Christ for what I say. So be prepared to speak in kindness and love, and be real clear that everyone I'm putting in front of you reflects me. And when I'm talking to God, that's what I'm feeling. Just know, Rachel, that when you speak to someone, that is a reflection of some part of my strengths. So when you get ready to speak into it, so the call to action would be, one, self-reflection, and two, be prepared to know that you're speaking to a vessel of God and a reflection of God, and someone that's been created in His image, no matter who it is. And then I think you, and not to give like 3 points, because I didn't like prepare that ahead of time, just so you know. But that's any good sermon, right? We got 3 points. If I could only have gotten to start with the same letter, I would have been perfect on that. But, and then the last thing I think is grace again. Like, extend it to yourself. And if you mess up the words that you're saying to someone, or you mess up the steps that you've taken, get back in it. Don't quit. that there is nothing that persistence cannot, I mean, you think about how God honors persistence in the scriptures. And if you will be persistent and take it to the Lord and say, I'm trying to love those in front of me, please Lord, help me do it how you would want it done. And then you don't quit even when you've hurt somebody. Because the Bible's clear on, and you can Matthew 18 and go right to them, and you can repair this, even if their words have been hurtful, or you said the wrong thing, or you did the wrong thing. Just don't quit. We can't let up. That's,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
You got a question for Pastor Rachel? She gave you enough? She gave you enough. Okay, so.
I do have one question. What does HIL stand for?
It stands for heard, important, and loved.
That's good. I think people may want to know that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I was online looking it up.
It is. It stands for heard, important, and loved. And that's good for me to hear from you, because remember I said it has its little toddler legs. That's something that we can take note. I need to fix that.
That's right. So, we're gonna go to the part of our show where we do a she-mail question.
Okay.
And our she-mail question is, our viewers, they will send in, questions or concerns, and we will address them with our, perspective or our opinion. So, continue to send your questions and concerns to shebecameme2020@gmail.com. This is probably like, the highlight of the show, so we kind of like, pulling out the questions that y'all have or concerns, and then we will address them. And then we want to get, Pastor Rachel's, perspective. So let's see what we got today. Oh, how do you deal with stress? So you can start, Pastor.
Will we start?
Yes,
Okay.
how you deal with stress?
Okay, I can't help it, but this is a super churchy answer, and I hope that it speaks to your heart. This is churchy. I, last year, had an incredibly stressful situation. I mean, ministry is amazing, but you also carry people's, you carry their hurt with you. And I started the practice of centering prayer. And that is a meditative practice, and it is, it's in the morning, and it's at lunchtime, and it's 20 minutes, and it's silence with a centering word that, and I'll just share you, my sacred word is harmony. That's my word, and you focus on that word, and you focus on just being with God. And now, how does that help you with stress? That sounds more stressful. You're just trying to not think of anything else. But it's a cleanup. Like if you think of your messiest room, and I'm not a neat freak, but even for me, when the laundry's all done and folded, or there's the messiest messy, or somebody details your car for you. Notice I didn't say I did my own. Or, there's that cleaning up, and for me, it cleans my mind and my spirit so that, one, I'm open to respond instead of react, which keeps the stress around me lower. And it also helps me to remember things that I've forgotten. Like, again, God loves that person more than you can even imagine, more than you love your own children. God loves that person. And when you're going to go deal with whatever they're bringing to you, then you can stay calm and release the stress.
Yeah.
And a good massage never hurts.
That was my answer.
Oh, sorry.
But that was my answer, just self-care, just really humbling. Like when I have stressful moments, those are times when I go for a massage or some type of relaxation treatment. I love candles, and then I write. So I love to journal in those stressful moments too.
What about you? Give us a man perspective for stress.
I don't know if it's really man perspective. For me, I've never, I grew up, my father was a DJ, and so music has always been my thing. And so probably about 6-7 years ago, it always bothers me when I go to church and I don't know none of the songs. So I'm just sitting there, I'm glad
The words that are now.
yeah, so, but even when you see the words, like, I'm not catching the right word. I need that little bouncy ball. It's not working for me. So I had made a gospel playlist,
Oh.
right? And typical of somebody who might not listen to gospel music a lot, I started with Kirk Franklin.
Yeah, right,
And
right.
but I came up with this list, and actually it's not a lot of Kirk Franklin on there. But there's this song by, I think the guy's name is Tim Brown. It's called "I'm Good." And
Yes.
anytime I'm having a stressful moment,
I'm checking
I put that song on, and it just puts me in the right space, the right vibe. And you know, I might play it once or twice, but that usually pulls me in the direction of figuring out what that next step is to eliminate that stress, even if it's for a temporary moment.
I can definitely understand. I do something similar to that. So what I started doing is like to not even get to a stress level where I have to like really take time away to like deal with the stress. So I do something daily, and it's similar to what you said. I got certain songs when I'm in the car that I listen to. So it's basically like when I'm by myself, I take that time in the car, you know, driving to and from work or wherever I'm going, and that's I can decompress and I can like listen to songs, and certain songs just fill me up. They change my mood. So if something is starting to bother me, worry me, or stress me, I got these go-to songs, and every time, and I'm gonna share this real quick. And for the first time, I listened to a song that I've listened to many times, not too long ago, and that song was Whitney Houston sing "The Greatest Love of All." And I couldn't believe how that song just spoke to me so differently, like recently. And when I heard the line that said, everybody's looking for a hero, and then people need somebody to look up to, and then I thought it just resonated with me so deep. When I was in the car, I could have just, dropped a tear, because I was thinking, I spent many years looking for a hero when I had to be my own hero. So, just hitting a replay on certain songs, you can hear it 1,000 times, and maybe 1,001 time would be the one that changes something for you. So I just kind of do that to just stay at a level for stress.
And it's Tim Bowman. I said Tim Brown. I just realized it's Bowman.
B-O-W.
B-O-W-M-A-N. Junior.
Oh, we gonna check that. You said it's called I'm what?
I'm good.
I'm good, okay. Well, guys, we wanna thank Pastor Rachel for, stopping by and blessing us and pouring into us and sharing her spiritual journey with us. And, we got another guest, for this show, so we'll take a short break and we'll be back. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. Glad you guys stay tuned. So our second guest for this segment is Precious Stone. So let's welcome Precious.
Precious. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So, Precious is a yoga teacher, and she also practices meditation. And those are some of the things that I know that, since we've been talking about spiritual connections, for this segment, that Precious does for her spiritual connection. So we're gonna let Precious jump in and kind of share with you guys what are some of her customs, traditions, and techniques and routines and things that she used to stay spiritually connected. So go ahead, Precious, you can just let us know, how do you stay connected, and when did you know you were spiritually connected?
Okay. Spiritually connected. I knew at a very young age that people were drawn to me. I've always been really quiet and reserved, and I was like, why are people drawn to me? Why? I don't even talk. And here they come. So I knew then, I was like, okay, God has given me something, and I need to figure it out, early on. I began my journey to help people heal by way of teaching Zumba. Okay. So I started Zumba. My weight had peaked to like 300 pounds. And I was like, okay, I love myself. I was reared up to, love yourself no matter what.
Right.
This is who you are at this present moment. If you want to change it, then you take the steps to change. But where you are, you just meet yourself there and you keep it going.
Right.
So I began to connect with people like that because, in our community, people were living sedentary lives and they weren't, active and didn't feel comfortable to be in spaces to be active.
Right.
So I was like, okay, so how can I change this?
Right.
What can I do? So I started with Zumba. Zumba led me to meet bounds of people. In 2015, I made a big leap to go to Puerto Morales, Mexico for 30 days without my family, by myself, had never traveled abroad, to do yoga teacher training. So I did that, scared to death. And it was such an awesome journey to turn inward
Yeah.
because spiritually I was reared up Baptist and I was taught things, but I didn't, learn it on my own.
Right.
These were things that were poured into me.
Right.
So once I took that journey, it was like, okay, so now it's time for you to crack open and figure out you.
Right, right.
What do you love? What do you enjoy? What do you not like?
Right.
Without someone, forcing or
Right.
projecting their own feelings.
Right, right, right.
So, that's how I began my journey with self, my
Right.
self-study, as I would say a lot.
I like that word.
And just, learning about me. Here I am in an industry that is not really welcoming to women of color and curvy women
Yes.
of color. So
Really?
here I am, like breaking through. Okay, here I am, like it or not.
I'm here to stay.
And that took a lot of digging deep too, to
Yeah.
first have that foundation with myself to know that, hey, you can do this, and
Yeah.
you are needed for whatever reason.
Right.
You were chosen to walk this path.
Right.
So what you gonna do with it?
Right.
So here I am,
Wow.
on this journey of self.
So, with the meditation piece, tell us, how did you get into the meditation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I remember as a young girl journaling. I've been journaling as far as I can remember. Things that I wasn't comfortable with saying out loud or expressing audibly, I would just write it down.
Mhm.
And that was my meditation and my yoga before I even knew what it was. So that led to I'm a loner. I've always been a loner. So I've always sat with myself in silence
Yeah.
and just thinking
Okay.
and, talking to myself and just kind of working
Yeah,
through
yeah.
things. That's just who I am.
Right.
And then it just kind of cultivated as I began to learn and read and, acquire a lot of knowledge.
Mhm.
How do you start your meditation journey, okay? Sometimes it was just 5 minutes.
Right.
Just sitting in silence, no phone, no children, no husband, no anything. Just be
Right.
still,
Right,
and be quiet.
right.
Because we're in a world that's always going, always turning, always churning. And we're encouraged to be going and
Right,
hyped
right.
up and turned up all the time.
Right,
So
right.
it's important for you to collect your thoughts. A lot of times I will collect my thoughts at the beginning of the day. So I get up before the sun rises, open the blinds, and I'm just sitting there in just the easy pose, just with your legs crossed, or I sit on a cushion, meditation cushion, and I'm just there for whatever I need to receive. I'm there to take it in. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know I've been thinking about that since I had Precious come out and speak at a women's workshop that I had last year. And, ever since you did that, I've been wanting to get back to some of those tips and techniques that you demonstrated for us. I remember the one you had with a small hard ball. And then she said, just like rub it on your temple.
Yeah.
And, and then I was thinking like, well, what is that gonna do? Before I actually did it, right? But it was amazing that, when I actually did it, that, it was just a physical change that I really experienced with doing it. So I would say, it's particularly in the Black community, I would say yoga and meditation is probably foreign to us, and maybe that's why it's never been something that, in our generational, that's been passed down. And I see why it may be hard, for you to show up. It's kind of like when when Venus and Serena showed up in tennis, huh? But at the same time, I'm glad you're there, and I'm glad that you are trying to share with us another technique in a way that we can, you know, for better health, you know, for our culture. And we need to spread that, word to each other, that we have to take time to meditate, because your mind is your greatest asset. And if you don't guard it and protect it and cherish it, you know, the body's just gonna perish anyway.
Absolutely. And
So-
then you think of our community too, what are we dying from?
Right.
Disease,
Yep.
diabetes, stress.
Yes.
And that's the root of everything. So
Yeah.
when you learn how to manage your stress, then it increases your quality of life,
Yes.
period.
And then the diabetes and stuff, go ahead and, expound on, that are you a vegetarian, or are you, somewhat of a vegetarian, or how do you? Cause you know, some people sound like a vegetarian.
So I am an aspiring vegan.
Okay.
Okay? I'm a vegetarian, which
Okay.
means, just for me personally, I
Okay.
still eat, cheese and eggs.
Okay.
And cheese is my thing, you know, all different types of cheeses.
Okay.
So for, as far as pork and beef, I got pregnant with my son. I had him at 19, and I just developed like a taste aversion. And I
Okay.
could not eat beef or pork. It made me sick to my stomach. So I just
Okay.
that was just kind of divine
Okay.
intervention.
Okay.
Chicken, it's been about 3 years, and that was
Okay.
hard because
Yeah.
we eat chicken.
Chicken, yeah.
And I still salivate when I smell chicken. I'm like, yum. But I noticed that once I stopped eating chicken, a lot of the inflammation that I had on like my knees and my joints is subsided. And I was like,
So you know I gotta give up chicken.
this is my diet. You know, the diet is super important.
Shape your body.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you just think, you know, our parents, they really didn't have that walk because they didn't have all the preservatives that we encounter now, even with the fruits and vegetables. So,
Well, according to my parents, they only had meat on Sunday. So
so that saved them. I mean, it really saved them because it was at stretch in time where they weren't consuming those animal products.
They didn't have meat,
So,
yeah. But, that's great, because, I'm just now moving to that direction in my life, that I'm really am trying to become more healthy, so. But that's a bummer, I thought I was doing good, just on the chicken. So now I gotta give up chicken.
yeah, it's kind of like the dirtiest of them. I think what was pivotal for me, I was riding on the highway next to a Tyson's chicken truck, and the smells that were coming from that truck, I was like, I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah.
No, this is what we're putting in our bodies, you know?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no. So, yeah.
So Precious, a quote, can you explain this to our listeners and us? We individually possess the power to heal ourselves if we create the right conditions within our body. You are your own healer. How so?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it starts with your mind and how you think about everything, your outlook on life, your diet, the people that you surround yourself with, the things you listen to. It all affects your well-being and your quality of life. I always say quality of life.
Oh, definitely.
It affects everything around you. So if you create the right conditions in what is healthy to you, because you might not know what is healthy, you know?
Right, right.
So it takes a lot of researching and education, you know, on the individual that wants to go in that direction. There's so many resources. Ramika and I have connected with Queen Afua, you know, and talking about that and how to heal yourself. So researching herbs, different podcasts. There's so many different resources. But initially just turning inward, knowing who you are, knowing where you stand and what you know, provide to the world. So I would just say starting with yourself, learning how to eat and care for your body, the way you move, the way you talk,
Yeah.
the way you interact. It's like it's really a holistic thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, Precious is also a contributing author to She Became Me. And Precious can kind of give you guys a little bit on her chapter and the title and what does that mean to her, her title.
Yeah.
So go ahead and let our viewers know
Yes.
what was that all about.
So queen. and developing into a queen, you know, cause it was something, and I always go back to, teachings and stuff, you know, when I was in school, I can only talk for myself, I felt like our history didn't start until slavery. So wrong, you know? So this is something that I had to learn as I got older. I had to educate myself, you know, hey, we are royalty. It is just in our DNA. This is who we are. So just learning that, okay, the trials and tribulations that I went through as a young girl, not having a father figure in my life, and what I went through trying to find a daddy in older men, or it just wasn't the way it should be, you know. And I had to go through that so that I could be a vessel to teach other young girls, and you know, show my daughter the way, because I definitely didn't want her to have to go through the same trials and tribulations that I went through trying to find a father figure. So just evolving into the woman that I want to be. You know, I want people to seek me just like I was able to seek older women for advice and instruction, and then discerning who's there for you to, you know, protect you and guide you, and who's there just to look, meddle, gossip, whatever it is, because we have that too, you know. So yeah.
I have a question. So
Yes.
obviously we're in the midst of a pandemic. I'll talk for myself first. I have found it very challenging to be, number one, to manage my stress, and be, my family would say, as I call myself, the queen of the house. And help be the support and help them stay, myself centered as well as them, you know, kind of being an example and support and modeling, trying to, in my home, not doing very well during this time. So how has your spiritual connection, all of the things that you've talked to us about, meditation, and the things that you've mastered, you know, to wellness, what advice would you give to me and all the people out there that are just trying to balance so much in a home with children and husband, and just managing life, even if they don't have all those things, just the demands of everything right now going on?
And it is a balance, you know, and I always refer back to just taking a few moments for yourself first. Like, even if it's just sitting on the side of the bed, just to collect your thoughts. Okay, what do I need to support myself today? What do I need for me to show up in the best way that I can today? And sometimes it's just sitting on the side of the bed and just collecting, whether it's writing it down in your journal or just thinking out, maybe saying it out loud, but just kind of checking in with you at the beginning of at the top of the day, and figuring out how can I be where I need to be? What do I need to do? What are the steps? What do I need to support where I want to be today? And just take it from there. Because it's e-learning. I have one that's doing virtual e-learning as a freshman, and I have to get up and say, okay, this is where we are today, because I can't worry about yesterday. I can't worry about tomorrow. I have to be in the present moment, and when you're in the present moment, and you can focus on that, and you don't have to exude all that energy on all the other stuff that doesn't matter, you know, because what can you do about it at this point in time? So,
So being a brother of color,
yes.
I've been to a couple yoga classes in my time and struggled through them. But one thing that I did notice was there weren't a lot of other black men in there. In fact, I've been to 3 classes. One was actually in Arizona. There were really no black people in that class. To be honest, what is something that we can, because I'm a man who speaks specifically for black males, what is something we can do to encourage more black men to look towards yoga and meditation, especially right now with everything going on with systemic racism and you know, all the riots and police shootings being brought to a higher level of visibility? What is this? What can we do, or how can we encourage more black men to look at the yoga look at yoga as a fitness possibility.
Absolutely. And I have worked at a couple studios where I was the only black woman, the only curvy black woman too. I always have to add that in, 'cause yeah, that's my badge of honor, you know. So I would have black men come to my classes because they knew I was teaching.
Mhm.
So it's so important for us to have more representation in that. And then if you do, like, say for instance, you do decide to pull out your mat at home, say that. Say that. Because you say, and then somebody else will be like, well, I was thinking the yoga was just for women, or I was thinking it was just for white women, or affluent white women, you know?
Mhm.
So just you bringing light to it and say, hey, man, I'm going to meditate, you know, let's start there.
Yeah.
So it is hard, because I would literally be giving out free passes.
Yeah.
Come join me. It's hot, yes, but you're gonna feel like a whole new
Yes.
born again person once you leave out of class.
So trust me.
So
she been telling
definitely, just you showing up and being open to, you know, those experiences, and then reach out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, it's so important for men, because even with the men in our community, if our women see the men doing yoga, then a lot of the women are gonna, okay,
Yes.
let me try it out. Let me try it out. So it's just kind of, you know, you gotta start somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's so important. It is so important.
So, we're,
So I felt a little creepy in there.
Yeah, and it can be. And trust me, being up in front
supposed to
of
be here like this.
Because it got to such a point where it wasn't for anybody, you know, if your skin wasn't white. It's
Yeah.
like, this is so
Right.
far away from,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
the actual meaning of yoga, which is union and community, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So,
So,
Yeah.
so where can people reach you at Precious? Give our viewers your information, and of course, that content will be at the bottom of the screen. They was interested in meditation or yoga, like where they can find your classes and the schedule and stuff like that.
absolutely. So I own the Yoga Lady LLC. I do private and group sessions at this moment. You can reach me at theyogalady@gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram at theyogalady317, or you can reach me at 317-413-2761. I also teach currently through Haven, and that is a black-owned studio here in the city.
Okay.
I've been teaching with them since January, and we're online right now. We're not even
Okay.
in person. So
Okay.
check out Haven, because it's a very diverse
Okay.
environment, encouraging diversity in our community. And
Okay.
yeah, so check us out.
I just followed you too. I followed you.
Yay!
Get my yoga on.
Awesome.
Get this move.
Just that whole mind-body connection.
So we're gonna move to our she-mail part of this segment. So, of course, again, she-mail, hit us up at shebecameme2020@gmail.com and continue to send in your questions and concerns. So we're gonna do one with Precious and see what Precious' perspective may be for some of the questions and concerns that you guys are sending in. So let's see what we got here. You know, my. We tend to like just pull the right question for the right guess. So this one says, what strategies can we use to self-regulate when we are triggered by stress, anger, or emotional trauma? And it's perfect for you, wasn't it?
So here recently, of course, like all of us, I have been in Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call for all sorts of things. And one, it's funny that came up, and one of them was about trigger. And this one guy had said that if something triggers you, it means it's something that you don't want to let go of.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like learning, what are your triggers? What are they? Why do they trigger you?
Right.
And how do you get to the root of that? you know, and that's where it has to start.
Yeah.
You know, start where you are, you know, learn those triggers, and then just kind of evaluate and assess from there. Even if you have to make like a little pie chart thing, where you start in the middle with whatever
Yeah.
it is, and then just branch off. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say a strategy would be to, definitely, start with self-awareness. Kind of like what you're saying, self-awareness is just paying attention to your triggers. Understanding that, you know, I'm feeling a certain type of way. You know, recognizing that emotion, and then even documenting, like, when is this happening? Is every time, is it a person that's triggering you? Is it a season? Is it a certain thing that some people are doing? Like you said, and that's how you're gonna get to the root, because if you don't get to the root, I mean, you just keep having symptoms and you never know what's making you sick, then you're just gonna stay on the merry-go-round in the cycle of just being sick.
Absolutely.
So, self-awareness for me, that's a strategy you can use.
Just add, great tips.
Okay, well, I wanna thank you, Precious, for stopping by and sharing with us the tips, the very well, needed tips in, particularly in the Black community, about yoga and meditation, and, how do you connect spiritually, how do you take those things and, you know, tie them all in together in your daily life, so, with your spiritual journey. So, that would be it. That will be it for our show today, and we want to thank you guys for tuning in and connecting with us at the heart. Until next time, we'll see you later.